Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you are watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our whole first hour is all Q&A. We do this every single day, 7 days a week. You can ask those questions in Makana, of course. You can vote on those questions. You can chat about those questions. If you're not a Makana, of course, you can also just use askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. And you can ask those questions. You can use this little QR code here and throw those questions in. We'll try to get them in during the same day, but we'll definitely get them in the next day or two after that. So throw them in, askofficehours.global. Let's go ahead and jump into those questions. Bill, what do we have?
First one comes from Andy Kokendorfer this morning, and Andy is in Viera, Florida, and asks, do you have a live stream monitoring tool that gives you quality of service / quality of experience data for viewers across the world with alerts?
That usually is provided in one version or another by many of the streaming services. And so they're going to give you back some quality of service. It's never as much as you want. But it is something that if there's a certain level, even if you look at YouTube, you'll see that there is it'll tell you there's a certain level of alerts coming back from the players. Usually those numbers are very, very small, that are going out. Generally, when something's going wrong, it's going wrong everywhere, but not always. You may have regional outages. We had one show where someone cut up one fiber line in Virginia and knocked out the entire Northeast seaboard. I mean, it was incredible. So it can happen. And so the other thing that we pay attention to, I'd love to tell you that we have incredible detailed data about these things, but we generally don't. And what we end up with is, down detector and in some cases, now if we built the player, we would definitely build it with more telemetry. And some of them have telemetry in them, but we haven't seen a lot of them. And I'm assuming what you're talking about is the viewer's experience on each one of these things. And that's the thing that we have a little bit of data about, but not as much as we'd like. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, the most granular data that I've seen is actually using Zoom. They've kind of tightened it a little bit due to privacy outside of your organization, but I was shocked as to, you can see even the name of their microphone and, minute by minute. Yeah, if you have a business account, you get this dashboard. So you not everybody gets this, but if you want intelligence and you're willing to have the picture quality of Zoom, which, YouTube looks better because you get the fidelity. But if you really want to keep track of this stuff, how long somebody stayed on, what their total experience was, if they're wired Ethernet, if they're Wi-Fi, it's pretty granular. It's pretty spectacular, actually. You get some detailed reports that give you insights that you would have never dreamed of. So if you know somebody with a business account, go take a look. Ask them if you can take a peek behind the scenes at some of the data. It's pretty shocking.
Next question.
Next question comes from Douglas Carmichael, and Douglas says, since Companion now supports the StreamDeck Neo, would the Neo be a solid entry point into the StreamDeck world for someone new to the ecosystem? This would be, by the way, he notes, for a small studio, not for live event use.
Nigel?
It's a good entry point, but again, we've had this conversation a few times on Office Hours, that it's the number of buttons that you need. And many of us I started with the Mini thinking I'm never going to have a Mini as 6 buttons, and ended up at the XL. Because the moment you start using Companion, you discover there's 1,000 things you can do. And while you don't necessarily want them on the multiple pages, because you end up losing 2 buttons to move backwards and forwards, you end up finding so many uses for this thing that buy the biggest one that fits even in a small studio. You won't regret it.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I completely agree with Nigel. I bought one of these, and yeah, it's fine. I mean, what's nice is that it has the plus and minus, like advanced screen buttons burned in kind of down at the bottom by the clock. What's not nice about that is you lost those buttons. That they are just, they're not modifiable.
Good guy.
Yeah, go into Companion and just use the emulator and build some buttons. Scroll through that list and see what devices that you want to use it with, and you'll wind up with 232s. I mean, that's what I have on my desk is 232s side by side, and then I have the Plus, which is kind of backing me up as a just in case. But the 232s give me, for the shows that we're doing, it gives me everything that I need, and I'm actually about ready to buy another one. So that tells you another 32XL. So, but in my hand on the daily, I just use a 16 just for muting, unmuting, cutting. And so that's a simple way to go, but 32 for sure.
Yeah, I think it's if you're going to be on camera and you want it to match all of your microphone and your lights and all the things, I see why they made it. And I think that's really their target is not someone like us doing the work. It's someone that's going to be on camera and they want something a little shinier and to look a little and to fit into the overall, for a creator to have it fit into the overall thing when they have an overhead shot. So I think that that's really the target. It's not to do the work. I think that, again, you could go smaller with this, and then now you don't have extra stuff being taken up. I use this for my keynote presentations, or again, larger. And usually I just go straight to the 32 as well. I have all the ones in between, but I go, there's no reason you won't ever, ran out of keys on my 32. So I need more. So I think that's, but you could go up to the base version, which is 149. The little one I just showed you is 49, and you only lose 2 buttons. So the $99 for someone in between doesn't add up, in my opinion. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada, looking for recommendations for an unmanaged 16 to 24-point switch with either no energy-efficient Ethernet or at least a way to turn it off if it has it.
Go, Jason.
All right. My first thought is, why do you need an unmanaged with no efficiencies? If you want to go managed, yeah, of course, the Netgear AV, but unmanaged is going to depend on what you're really using it for.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas comes to us next with this one. Microsoft Build 2024 starts tomorrow, Tuesday, picking up the tech event baton from Google I/O last week and Apple's iPad event the week before. What do you expect they will roll out?
I bet you they're going to talk about AI. I'm going to lay some money down that there's going to be a discussion of AI. So Microsoft obviously has bought into OpenAI and ChatGPT. ChatGPT released 4.0 last week. So it's a perfect kind of setup to kind of get it out there, get it out to people, and then be able to talk more about it at Build. So my guess is we're going to see. My guess is it's going to be all AI, like how AI is going to make a difference, how AI is going to make a difference for your programming, your development, your meetings. I think it's going to be an AI presentation, in my opinion.
Are you saying people should not do a drinking game with AI taking a drink every time that's mentioned?
No, do not do that. You will not make it through the first 15 minutes. You'll just be like, I got through the first 15 minutes. I don't remember anything else. So yeah, I think that I
not
would
a good plan.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't play that game. Yeah, go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, I think the other thing about Microsoft is that they tend to do a much more business and commercial view of things. So it's where you saw Google do a very consumer thing, and Apple, will just find out what Apple does will probably be a more usage-based thing. What you should expect from Microsoft is a much more business-related thing. How can businesses deploy this technology? How does it work in your industry to make your industry better? They're much more vertically aligned as a company inside. They'll, of course, talk about Azure and how that's going to work with it. And they may even talk about how they use it themselves, but expect a more B2B set of messages. There may be consumer examples, but it'll be really focused on corporate.
Next question.
James Fosling in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My YouTube research on setting up Unifi now seems inadequate for my specific setup. How do you approach such a task?
Jason?
I would start with just a fundamental understanding of networking. That you should be able to get really, really far, and then just start with the router and make mistakes, and don't forget don't forget that you could just reset stuff and start over.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next. I'm deciding between an Eaton 5P and 9P UPSs. Would the 5P be sufficient for a home studio setup? And he's got a link there to the Eaton products.
I don't know. I feel like this is going. I have to admit that my ability to answer some of these is a little bit limited because the only ones that I have bought in the last 10 years have been APCs, especially for home studios. So we had some Liebherds in our truck that were bigger and really robust. But the Eaton ones look great. I just don't. I don't know why you would I don't understand why you would do something else. Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, make sure that you go through and check how much power everything's sucking up before you determine what you're going to purchase. So
he said
you want to have some overhead.
He said he had tested it. This has been kind of an ongoing research project, and I think he's about 680 watts is what he's pulling. So, but our recommendation earlier was to go all the way to make sure that you have plenty of headroom, as you're about to say. So that's why the 1500 has been kind of where we've been kind of pushing towards that.
I just bought 2 of the 1500 VAs as well, and we just did an hour-long, actually it was longer than that, hour and a half long show in Jeff Keithley's What Makes It Tick. Douglas, I'll put a link in the chat for you to watch that episode. We go pretty deep into all the division and the watts and amps and figuring it all out as to if you're building a rack, if it's portable, or if you're just keeping it at home, if you don't need to actually rack mount the thing, how often you need to change the batteries out. Because sometimes you can find deals on these things used, but then you got to replace the battery, and the battery winds up costing more than one of the units that you can buy at Costco or something like that. So do your research, but I'll put a link in the chat to that episode, and there's lots of propeller heads in there. Salvador really goes off, and some of the stuff's more generator style, where you're doing a big show at a venue like a football stadium. So there's a range in there, but I'll put the link.
Go ahead, Jason. Or no, I'm sorry, Nigel.
Yeah, of course, always be careful of buying secondhand power equipment. They don't last forever. There are parts that matter that expire, so be careful. The other one to look at, by the way, is Wattbox. They have a product in this space. And what's interesting about the Wattbox solution is it has a thing called Oversee in it, which will give you a web-based interface to the stuff. They also do rack-mounted ones, just in case you needed another choice.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas is up next, and Paul wonders, what's your favorite toner, I wonder if he means tone generator, for tracing Ethernet cable, and do you have any tips or tricks on how to use it?
Go, Jason.
So the better the one you get, the less you're going to have to need tips or tricks. For years, I've used the Klein Tools VDV 501, and this will do coaxial, it'll do phone line, and it'll do Ethernet. And if you look at the bottom of it, this is where you're actually having to receive, and it will push data and it will test PoE. So there it is with the bottom off of it, and that becomes its own little remote. And then, of course, each of these is a numbered remote, so you can just go around to your different outlets, plug all of them in, and you don't have to keep going back and forth. That's pretty handy, and that's the QR code for that one.
That's great. Next question.
Sean Johnson in New York, working with the latest incarnation of Zoom, the workplace, when I pin a meeting participant to a second screen, is there a way to have that be actually full screen without showing the Zoom workplace logo and the black bar at the top?
I am not as familiar with working inside a workplace, and there are ways to turn off the logo, but usually you have to have a certain level of you have to be at a certain level inside of Zoom to be able to do that. And I don't know what that is to do that. To take the logo is kind of a big deal. So we've had, I think that there have been, I'm not sure exactly how to take that out, but I know that it's been a wrestle in general to take the logo out. Obviously, they want people to know that you're using Zoom. So I'm not sure about exactly how to make those changes there. But I would say that if you're trying to pin and you're trying to pull that content, if that's what you're trying to do, I'm not sure exactly how I assume from your question that you're trying to get a clean feed from that so that you can put it somewhere else. Highly recommend looking at, as soon as you say, I want a clean feed of something, then what you really want is Zoom ISO. So, really look at Zoom ISO there as a solution for you to pull clean feeds from a system, because that's going to give you, it's a much better solution than I can't think of a reason that I would pull a feed from Zoom any other way other than Zoom ISO, or using one of the apps like, Mimo Live or vMix or many other things. I would use that very quickly before I did any kind of screen scrape. Screen scrapes are legacy. It's a legacy approach. Next question.
Next one comes from John Bontrager in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the question is, has anyone worked on an album remastering? What is involved and anything insightful?
Go ahead, Bill.
Not in decades, and I'll tell you why. I once originally started doing most of my voiceover work in a place called Audio Video Recorders in Phoenix, Arizona, and they had a little mastering system in the back room. They had actual lathes that used to cut vinyl out of there, and it was really interesting. And I was talking to the chief engineer there at one point, and he was talking about when you got the tapes and recording, you can hear one thing. Transferring that back in the old days to a vinyl pressing was an iffy thing. There was some curves that you had to place into it, and you wanted to really change the mix from what you heard off of the tape to something that would sound good coming off the record. So I always kind of equated mastering to that process of making something so it sounded good off of a different thing. Now, I think as we started to get into albums, mastering became a very creative art, and there were people like George Maschenberg in Los Angeles and others that were just hugely known for a high-end act would get their tapes done and get them finished, and that mastering engineer would then go in and rebalance things very precisely so that the sound coming through either off of CD or the record album or the tapes or whatever was better than it had been when they were mixing it down just for listening on the speakers in there. They had particular things to do to separate instruments out so that you could hear that violin solo or whatever it was, the guitar solo. And so I think it became kind of a creative piece. Mastering now means that more than it did in the old days. So it's a creative function, and people who are really good at it get paid a lot to make those things sound exceptional.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of remastering right now as it relates to spatial. So Apple kind of created a revolution of people wanting to remaster their albums, and everyone wishes or hopes that they have those tracks. I know people are digging through studios right now asking for, hey, do you have the tapes from this song from the 80s or 90s? Literally, I've talked to some folks, and these, everyone's looking for, they're digging through the attic trying to find these because people want to remaster them. Now, it's starting to get to a point where some of the remixing is possible with track separation using AI. And you've even seen Apple now, the new Logic will do some basic track separation. There's definitely tools that do it better right now. But by doing that automatic track separation using AI, they're able to kind of respatialize some of the stuff to create a little bit more of a spatial feel to it, but it's not nearly as good as having the original tracks. so there's nothing like having the original tracks, and we're seeing definitely folks in LA digging through. I was talking to a studio up here in San Francisco, and they were, they have a lot of artists asking, can you find the tapes? They don't even know if the tapes will work at this point. They'll have to be baked and taken care of and everything else. But it's a really interesting problem that Apple has created of everyone trying to find the old masters for those types of things. But it's also new stuff, and now that spatial has become much more important. And it's interesting to see, because what happens is that the spatial gets kind of a priority in some of the algorithms. If the platform supports spatial, of course, they want people to hear it that way too. So, next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. The new Osmo Pocket 3 at first glance might be a great all-around streaming camera, although I didn't check at any AI specs. What do you think? It has many accessories, and he's got a link there to DJI.
Go ahead, Nigel.
I went on the track of wanted I could take up with me when I was doing road stuff, and I didn't necessarily want to take one of the big cameras because it's a backpack moment. And I didn't go this way, and I liked the look of that. It just seemed like too much. I went with the Link 360, and this is the Link 360 on it. It's a very nice little tripod, which sets up really well wherever I am on a deck, and it's half the price. So if you want to go the Osmo,
I think Nigel might be having some connection issues. So hopefully, like Nigel, if you can hear us. So you're breaking up a little bit on our end. There we go. Nigel, can you hear us okay?
Yeah. Sorry, I may be having network problems, so I might have to drop. But unless you're really walking around and you want that capability, the Link 360 is a great solution.
And don't drop. Just we'll see. Let's see if we get through the storm.
Okay.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Gene J. Anthony, GF, in Skokie, Illinois. We need the lyrics for the song about Cyclone B sung to the tune of Good King Wenceslas for a sing-along during an upcoming event. Where can we find this? Also, how do you do the bouncing ball for lyrics on the screen with image?
I don't know. It's a very complicated question. I don't know I think that this is a challenge for AI, is my guess. That you need to ask it for the lyrics, and then you need to give it the lyrics and try to have it create a song. You may find with many songs, whether it's this one or something else, you may find that that you can find the MIDI. So what you're looking for is search the song and then just add MIDI to the end and see if it shows up. Now, what that's going to do is give you some basic MIDI tracks that you can throw into something like Logic and other apps that will manage those MIDI instruments. It could even be GarageBand. And it's going to give you something where if you attach the right instruments to the MIDI, you're going to get something that's kind of like it. I mean, if you're doing an event, I mean, it's not going to be something I would try to release as an album, but it's something that might be able to give you what you're looking for. From there, you need to then try to get the lyrics to tie up with that, and there's going to be a little work there. I don't know of a good automatic way to do that. Same thing with the challenge really is with the bouncing ball is I don't know a way to do that automatically. I mean, it does seem like a great tool that AI should be able to do well, but I don't know of anything that could do the bouncing ball for you. You'd have to animate that yourself in something like After Effects or Motion or something else. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I did it once in Motion for a project that I was working on. It took me a lot of times, and I realized that once I had done it once, it's actually easy to do it again for other songs. But if you haven't done it the first time, it was a process of making a little series of arcs and a motion path in Motion, and then putting in a hold figure on each of the landing points, do a little acceleration so that it comes up, accelerates, then slows down and lands and stays as long as it takes until you need to go to the next word. And I think I did a maybe 20 hop thing, reproduced it over and over and over again for all the lines of the song, and then cut it down to the actual number of beats that there was. It took me a half a day of fiddling to get it, but once I got that motion path in place, I realized that the next time I had to do a song, I could really just copy and paste it on there and change those vectors, and everything would be okay. So it's a bit of work, but it's certainly doable in the modern tools.
Of course, if you have questions, you can ask officehours.global, ask officehours.global. You can also ask questions inside of Mokana. So you can throw those questions in and vote them down, whichever direction you'd like to go there. But once again, ask officehours.global. We are checking them. We're trying to do this in real time now. So if you're watching this, you can do that as well. Next question.
Next question comes from Francis Frey in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm experimenting with OpusClips. Is it possible to reset the preferred clip length without re-uploading the original file? Thanks, Francis.
Not that I know of. This has been a problem that I've had as well. So what happens is with OpusClips is that you can throw, like we take this show, for instance. If we throw this show in and we say we prefer 30 to 60 second clips so that they can be shorts, it's going to give me 40 of those clips. But there's no way that I know of to change it again. Now, you don't have to upload it again. You can just refer to the YouTube channel if you want to the YouTube event to make that actually happen. So you don't have to download it to do it. But I don't know if there's any resolution. I haven't tested the resolution change. It's interesting. If you're a creator in YouTube and you want to download your own content from YouTube and you use YouTube's tools, you're going to get a 720p stream. If you use Downy, you're going to get a 1080p stream. And what I don't know is whether Opus is getting access to the 720 or the 1080, and I haven't tested that. So anyway, I don't know whether that link works in both of those or not. But I don't know how to do it again. I know that this has been a thing. The reason I'm belaboring it is because it is something that I've thought about. Obviously, because what happens is that you want to get those 1 minute clips, but you go, well, there's a couple of these answers that would have been better if they were given a little bit more time. Like for instance, for our show, if it was 3 minute clips, it would probably encase most of the answers, And so one of the things that so we're trying to kind of figure out, what that looks like. We could put them on TikTok that way. We just can't put them in as as shorts, which is one of the reasons we've been using Opus. So anyway, I don't have an answer for you. If you let us know if you find one, but it's been a challenge for me as well. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Guy Cochran in Seattle, who's here on the panel. And Guy wonders, what can you do with software-defined radio?
Guy goes out, he's running down the field, and he catches his own pass. Go, it's a Cochran. He's running down the field, no one in front of him. Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
So I just started playing with this. Jeff Widgren of Zoom Test Kitchen, he was doing a show, and he had 4 wireless microphones, and he wanted to be able to listen to them, and he didn't want to buy additional receivers. So he had one of these things, and I had never seen one. It's $40 for this kit that you could buy on Amazon, and basically it's USB, and then you get this SMA antenna extended. It looks like this, and you could listen to like the police, fire. I have an airport nearby that I could listen to, but shockingly, you can take your transmitter, you could tune right to, like this one's at 553, 510, and you could actually listen to multiple channels of wireless at the same time, and it sounds really good. I was impressed for $40 that you could do this. And so it opened up this whole world. I was visiting my dad. The first one that I bought went to my dad because he has a bunch of scanners, and he's like, you could do that on a computer? And I was like, yeah, here, let's install it on your machine. And pretty cool stuff for $40. And then it opened up, of course, there's these escalating price points that you can get the bigger ones with the bigger antennas. And it's just like this evolution of things to buy now.
Yeah, and Mickey said RTSA for RF coordination. And he said this will only work with analog wireless systems, and you will not have the compander processing in line. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that as a receiver thing, this sounds like it would be a lot of fun to have in your kit and just play around with. I know that I think every one of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s were fascinated when we found out that we could get into those public bands and start listening to things on the far side of the world and things like that. I want them to switch it around. I mean, everybody can now be their own broadcaster, so everybody should have something that can broadcast to everyone all the time, software defined, so that the entire world now, every single person becomes a broadcaster. That would be interesting.
Go, Jason.
Oh, this was one of my favorite rat holes maybe 5 years ago. So I was writing an app for drone pilots, and I found this site called Flight Radar 24, and it maps planes in the sky. And, it costs something if you're not contributing to it. And then they said down at the bottom, for a Raspberry Pi and like this tiny little transceiver, if you're anywhere near an airport and you contribute, then you basically get the membership for free. And it is colossally cool. I mean, just seeing it on the web at flightradar.com or flightradar24.com is cool. But that was kind of my intro into software-defined radios. And, oh, man, just give it a shot. It's a lot of fun.
Next question.
Gordon Lake in Los Angeles, California says, when sending proxies from the Blackmagic camera app to the cloud and then down to Resolve for editing, can the proxies be used in a Zoom show, or is the quality too poor?
I mean, you could use anything you want for your Zoom show. I think that I don't know how much of a difference. We would have to do a head-to-head to find out how much difference. I have to admit, it's not something I know because it's just not a behavior that I would do. I just don't. I usually want things to be final, rather than, I don't want to work on things too much in proxies, to be honest. I mean, I wouldn't render out with proxies unless it was just for review. I don't know if you would see a huge difference, especially if it was shot well. The main challenge you get into is any kind of color correction, anything like that's going to fall apart really fast. So if it's really shot well and it is at 1080p and you don't see a lot of compression artifacts, it may look very close to the same. Go ahead, Jason.
Isn't there an app that will allow you to do like remote playback for the studio version of DaVinci? And isn't that somehow tied into this and able to do this play out over the internet? I could swear I've heard of this.
No, I just don't know if it would. I don't know if it would play. I think what he's trying to do is get something quickly and then re-edit it and put it up. And I just don't know if I would do that. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, so this, to me, I've been paying attention to because it is really what the new Final Cut iPad app does. It does multicam from your iPad to multiple iPhones. So the iPhones feed into the system. You get 4 views up on your iPad. That uses a proxy workflow that is similar, and I think they pioneered this back when they originally rolled out the first Final Cut Pro 10, because it was, I think, the first NLE that had that instant proxy system. It is making proxies as it's recording the main files. The proxies are delivered to your desktop so that everything is fluid and small and lightweight and works very responsively. But then in the background, the program eventually substitutes the proxy file for the original file that has been stored, and it just updates over time. I believe that the multicam system for Final Cut works the same way, and I'm thinking that the DaVinci system probably works the same way as well, because it just makes sense. You want to capture at full res whatever you set on your camera, but there's no reason not to have the processors transcode a smaller, lighter weight, less compressed version that you can deliver in real time, so somebody can do the switching and the rest of that useful stuff without having to wait for the full quality files, but then just substitute them out afterwards when you have a little more time to finish the processing. I think a lot of workflows are going to this. It is very good. And as to using the actual proxies, proxy just means a different version of something. So if it's a 4K file and the proxies are 1920 1080 standard HD, then there's no reason you couldn't use those if you want to deliver HD. You don't have to wait for the 4K files to come in to move on to the next step if that's your target. Now, if you're shooting in 8K or 6K and the proxies are bigger than that, it may not work the same way. And certainly, if your delivery is 1920 1080 and the proxies are coming in at 640 by 480 or something, you probably don't want to use those in the modern system because everybody wants more resolution than that to deliver to clients. So you just have to understand your workflow. But sounds like a good process to me.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Nigel DeSau in Austin, Texas. I'm having networking problems, not of Wi-Fi, so this is my wired network. What tools could I be using to diagnose the problem?
Yeah, this is why I don't know what router you're using, but usually the router is where you're going to look for that data. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, this is where having some cool tools like the Dream Machine. I'm going to go ahead and show just an example. So this machine here, like let's say this was this Omen, you can see all the different apps and all the different traffic, but you can also see where it's connected to. So there's an overview. It says it's connected to this switch. So I click on that switch and then I could see in the port manager, let's see, 18, that was this one. I could then go in here and say, where did I just see it? There was a latency test in here. There's all kinds of granular tools, though, that you can get in and check inside of, let's see, that's port 18 switch, and I just had it up. Anyways, there's tools inside of here that allow you to go ahead and, Mickey says, click on device. Isn't this cool that you can, let me pull this back. You can click on